he cheats on her with multiple women. She won't believe us when we tell her he's cheating because he says we're lying because we're jealous.
The person who's on the receiving end of that information might feel inclined to deny it because what does it mean for me to really accept this as true? A similar experience happens for the person who is doing the betrayal. Gaslighting is such a buzzword this year.
Welcome to Cheaper Than Therapy. I'm your host, Brooke, Houghton, and this is the series where we answer your anonymous questions on sex, love, and relationships. Today we're diving into the sticky situation of how to tell your friend that their partner is cheating on them and what to do if they don't believe you. We're joined by psychologist and sex therapist Lauren, who's going to help us get to the bottom. Let's go say hi.
So hey Lauren, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time. We have a very exciting letter write-in today. And we're going to be talking about the intricacies of friendship and cheating.
Yeah, a tough subject for sure.
Definitely. So should we dive right on in and read our reader question?
Let's do it.
Let's get into it. Okay. My friend is in law school and is dating a shady guy. He lies to her and tells her he's not shady, but he cheats on her with multiple women. She won't believe us when we tell her he's cheating because he says we're lying because we're jealous. What do I do to help her? Please keep me anonymous.
Such a tough situation.
Yeah, right off the bat, that's so difficult, especially when it's somebody that you care and love that's going through that difficult time. Then you're also having that issue of them not trusting you. Off the bat, what are your initial thoughts?
I think for the person who is dating this person, there's a lot of reasons why we might sort of protect ourselves from taking in that information, because to really believe that is true could be a really hard reality to face. And so for many of us, there might be good reason why we try not to hear that or not take that in. Because if that's really true, what does that mean for me, right? That maybe that ends my relationship. Maybe that means I'm in a relationship with someone I can't really trust. And that can be for some people too hard to face, or they're not ready to face that. And so, there might be a strong sort of defense against really taking that in and hearing it and internalizing it. So I can certainly appreciate that for the friend who's trying to bring this to their attention, that can feel like not being trusted. Mm-hmm. That can feel like, your friend doesn't really believe you. And what does that mean about the friendship? And certainly there could be some of that as part of the equation. It, sort of depends on the nature of the friendship and its history, and the variables that each person brings. But it also could be not so much that they don't trust you, but they don't want to hear that. They don't want to face what that means.
I think that's such a great answer, because it's so true. If you're not ready for a relationship to end, you're not going to want to hear anything that could possibly penetrate that happy bubble you're in. And there is that added layer of then the partner, obviously this person, or most likely with our knowledge that we have, brought this to their partner's attention and said, hey, my friend said this. And then they're hearing it's because they're jealous, they're not your real friends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, to you, this is a big buzzword right now. I think it's like one of the top words talking about in 2022. Is that gaslighting, or what do those actions from the partner look like?
Gaslighting is such a buzzword this year. I have very specific thoughts about it. And I think it's being used a lot and sometimes misused. And sometimes it's accurately used. When someone is cheating in a relationship and they're confronted about it, most of the time, the initial reaction is to deny it. Because just like the person who's on the receiving end of that information might feel inclined to deny it because what does it mean for me to really accept this as true? Mm-hmm. A similar experience happens for the person who is doing the betrayal. What does it mean if I actually fess up to what I'm doing? What does it mean for me to get honest about this? I could lose the relationship. I could really hurt this person. And so there's, again, sort of that strong instinct then to deny it. And I would say a high percentage of people, when actually confronted with their cheating, when they're actually cheating, are going to deny it at first. Mm-hmm. Because their defense goes right into action and says, nope, can't go there.
Definitely. And I think it's such a natural reaction.
Such a natural reaction. And it's rooted in fear, right? The fear is, what if this information is true? And then the fear is, what if I tell my person that it's true?
Mhm.
And if we want to maintain the relationship or protect the relationship or be able to stay in the relationship, these things then become at odds with one another.
That's
But it puts the friend in a really hard position.
Definitely. And I think when we talk about cheating, a lot of the times that we kind of analyze that person and say, okay, no, they're this evil person, they've done something horrible. But really, there's a lot that goes into that in a relationship, personal issues that lead to that, relationships in your current relationship, past relationships, and they could also feel guilty about what they've done. So not only are they fearing losing their relationship, but also they still very much well love and care about their partner, and knowing that that information is really going to hurt them. In this circumstance, obviously, they kind of turn to saying they're jealous of you and kind of deflecting that way. So I know we talked about it, and you're a psychologist, you're a sex therapist, you have so much experience, I'm sure, in this kind of field. Would that specific situation be considered gaslighting, or is that just denial?
I would call it denial.
Mhm.
I would call it defensiveness. I would call it invalidation. Those are words that I would use. Having seen the word being used a lot this year, I actually watched a movie called Gaslight, which is where the term originates from. And really, if we want to be sort of more purist with the term, it's more of a systemic, intentional attempt to try to make someone question their reality. And the part about it being intentional is often a key component to that. So, I mean, it certainly could be. It could be somebody who's, intentionally and systemically trying to cover their tracks, make you think you're not seeing what you're seeing. So I don't want to say that in every situation it wouldn't be. There might be some times where it is, and maybe even in this circumstance. But other ways of describing it might be, invalidating, deflecting, defensive.
Kind of moving it back to the friend's perspective here, would you recommend, so in any case scenario, if you know that your friend is being cheated on, should you tell them?
I lean more towards yes than no. I think it depends on the friendship. I think it depends on the history of that relationship. I think it depends on what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you see it with your eyes versus you suspect it versus it's something that you've heard about through the grapevine. And I think it's certainly a delicate thing to bring up in a friendship. But a lot of friendships, a lot of relationships, they're rooted in honesty and trust. And so if that's a value of yours as a friend, that you might want to delicately approach it, even if you're not sure. And, I think I saw something and I'm not sure, but I care about you and I want you to have this information so that you can do what's best for you. Now, the challenging thing is, A, they may stay in that relationship in spite of that information, and that's their choice. But B, what does it mean for me if my friend doesn't trust what I'm telling them? If they deny what I'm saying, or if they keep pushing back on me and telling me like, I'm getting it wrong, I don't know what I'm talking about, like make me the villain or the bad friend for sharing something with them.
Yeah, it's so complicated.
So complicated. And for some people, that may mean that the relationship has more distance because my value in truth and honesty is maybe going to supersede the frequency of contact or the closeness of the relationship. Because if I'm in a reality where I'm trying to share this information, you're not ready to hear it, that may create distance between us as friends.
Definitely. I think it almost comes down to your personal moral code as well. And, how much do you value honesty in your friendships? Like you were saying, for some people, that's the foundation. Like for me and my closest friendships, if I knew that information about their partner, no matter how much it would hurt them, I would want them to have that information because personally, I would want that information. And so, living my truth and living my life, I would want a friend to come to me and say that. But you're so right about the closeness of a relationship. Like, is this your best friend? Is this your close friend? Is it a coworker? Is this somebody that's more of an acquaintance that, you see their partner hooking up with somebody at a bar and then it's that awkward, oh, I run into you every week at the mail. Do I tell you this? And from what I'm understanding of this question, it seems like it is a close friendship. They're saying they're in law school, they're friends together. So maybe they're colleagues at school, they're friends outside of it. We don't know, but honesty usually is the best policy, but you can't control how other people react, which is kind of a scary part of life.
That's right. It's the risk that's inherent in relationships. And let's clarify one thing here, because honesty is a great policy. Brutal honesty is different than gentle honesty.
Very, very true. You can't just run up to somebody and be like, hey, your partner's cheating on you, doesn't love you anymore. You have to create a safe space. Hey, do you want to come over? There's something I want to talk to you about. It was maybe very hard to hear, but this is what I saw. This is what I know. As your friend and somebody who loves you, I want you to have this information. Being part of a solution and caring and giving space to your friend versus bombarding them with a really hard truth.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Relationships do not do well with brutal honesty, which means that it's not thoughtful, it's uncensored, it's unkind.
Yeah.
But sometimes gentle honesty can still hurt. And sometimes we can't avoid hurt feelings in relationships if we're doing that respectfully and mindfully.
Yeah, I guess, you can't control somebody's going to feel or take information because everybody's different, everybody processes and things hurt people differently. And I think when we're not the one hurt, we're more inclined to think in the gray. When you are the one hurt and you're the one seeking justice, things always look really black and white in my experience. Like if you're the partner that's doing the betraying, you can make allowances for yourself. You can think cognitively and be, this is, why I'm doing these actions. This is, my motivations for these actions. But when you're the person being hurt, it kind of just feels like either you've been betrayed or you've not been betrayed. The person's a good person or they're a bad person because they've done it. Nuance usually comes after the pain has settled a little.
Absolutely. And that's because we're in a different part of our brain and body. When we're in more of a stress response, which is what you hear of as like your fight, flight, freeze, shut down, like when those, when those things are at the forefront, when we kick into sort of that survival mode, we have less access or no access to shades of gray. And those are for survival purposes. So if you think back to like our history, if you were in an actual survival situation where there is a bear that shows up in front of you, we don't have time to sit and think about all the different potential outcomes and the risk and to weigh it all and to think cognitively. We just go into an automatic response. And so it's, run, it's, fall to the floor, it's put your dukes up, it's, something to just respond and react in the moment. And then later you get to look at nuance. Later you get to think about the big picture. And that's after you have established a sense of safety.
Yeah. Could that also kind of explain the denial on the one partner's perspective of like finding out they've been cheating on? If they're in that mindset, does that not allow them to think as clearly as they might be because they're in that hurt? Like, would that translate to them maybe not believing their friends or trusting their partner over them?
Absolutely. When we are in a stress response, in more of that survival part of our brain, it will limit our ability to think clearly, to experience empathy, to reason, to see the big picture. And so that can definitely be part of it. The other part is we have an attachment system. This is somebody I've invested in. This is somebody who I have maybe built a future with in my mind. This is somebody who I have loving feelings towards. What happens to all that if I accept that this is true?
Yeah, that's really difficult. You're letting go of a lot and you're accepting a lot of hurt in return. It's not really a great deal to take. But of course, life is full of a lot of hard decisions that you have to make. Usually, there's always a brighter light at the end of the tunnel, I like to think. There's always a happy chapter after a bad one. You just kind of have to keep pushing on through, and hopefully you have people that you can lean on in your life to help you through those harder times.
That's right.
Yeah, really, really difficult. And I'd like to bring it back to the friend's perspective and kind of what do we do now? So I'd like to wrap it up and hear your cheap advice on what this person should do now that they've brought this to their friend's not really believing them at this point. They're concerned for her well-being.
Again, such a tricky spot to be in. And I think it's important to know that you have options when you're in a spot that's like this. One option is to say, I did my job. I let her know that I'm concerned. I came to her with the truth or what I know to be the truth, and I shared that, and now it's up to her to take that and do what she wants with it. And I'm going to let it go and just continue on in the friendship and let her take that information and do what she wants. Another option is to bring it up another time and say, look, I'm still really concerned about you. I care about you. I hope you can hear me and my concern for you. I want what's best for you. So maybe you bring it up again. That's another option. If you start to feel like, hey, this is really having an impact on our friendship because I don't feel like you trust me, because of how you are receiving that information, because of what that might be creating between us, I may have to take some distance. Maybe I don't see you as often. Maybe I don't share as much with you. Maybe I give us some time to cool off from this situation. So maybe that means that I take a step back. And the reason I would do that would be to care for myself if I feel like this has really created some discomfort for me. And now there's a trust issue between us.
For sure. So kind of almost like a 3-step approach is what we're talking about for this advice. So first, if you'd like to, maybe bring it up again in a gentle way, say, I really care about you. This is something that I'm worried about for you. Depending on their reaction, either continue with the friendship and realize, hey, this isn't something that I can talk about with them. They're not ready to hear it. So I'm just going to need to be a good friend and hold space for them, still be there for them. If they're ready to talk, I will be there. I've shared my information. I've done my due diligence. And at that point, if you're still feeling that negative feeling from the relationship, either from feelings of distrust or that it's kind of pushed you guys apart, kind of your third step, if you're at that point, is taking a step away from the relationship for your own mental health and well-being and realizing, I don't necessarily have to continue down this path if it's not serving me as well.
That's right. And sometimes we take a temporary break or space or pull back in some ways. And sometimes that ends up, really impacting the relationship as a whole. And we take more long-term or permanent space. So that is really going to be dependent on you and what you need and how you find that things are progressing.
Definitely. Well, I hope this person gets to watch this episode and that their relationship with their friend continues on. Hopefully everybody can find some reconciliation within this question and within this time, because cheating is such a hard thing and it's so hard to hurt your friend too by breaking bad news.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really tough spot to be in. And I think the ultimate message is there's no one right way to handle it, that it depends on the situation and the context and what you need to do also for yourself.
Oh, well, thank you so much for talking about this. This has been a great conversation. I feel like I've learned so much from you, Lauren. I appreciate it. If you want to tell our readers a little bit about yourself and where they can find you.
Sure. I'm Dr. Lauren Fogel Mersy. I am a psychologist and I'm based virtually out of a suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm originally from Toronto, and so I have a little bit of that Canadian attachment for sure. I am pretty active on Instagram. I have TikTok, I have Facebook, and so I can be found at my handle, which is at Dr. Lauren Fogel Mersy, and Mersy is with an S.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on and chatting with us, Lauren. I appreciate it so much, and hopefully we'll hear from you again in the future.
Thank you so much.
This was Cheaper Than Therapy with Brooke Houghton and special guest Lauren Fogel Mersy. Make sure to tune in next month for another episode. In the meantime, submit your own anonymous question with the link below. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye!
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our Narcity channel to see more content just like this.